Public policy. Building codes are part of a public policy determined by the legislature, who declare a need for minimum standards of safe construction. Authority is given to government bodies in order to oversee that buildings are constructed to those standards. This public policy is found in Oregon Revised Statutes, ORS, Chapter 455. The building code system should protect the life, health, and safety of the citizens of Oregon. The state of Oregon describes the authority given to various agencies to adopt and enforce the state building code system in ORS 455.010. Goals of the State Building Code. Some of the goals of the State Building Code are protection of life, health, and safety, to prevent fires, through proper electrical installations, proper heating appliance installations, gas piping leak prevention, to prevent electrocution, avoid improper wiring, to prevent explosions, water heater installations, a potential catastrophe, boilers, an even bigger potential disaster, gas installations, repairs. Goals of the State Building Code continued. To prevent structural collapse from snow loads, wind loads, earthquake forces. To prevent disease, sanitary systems, plumbing, waste lines, cross connections, ceiling fixtures, backflows. To protect welfare of occupants, light and ventilation requirements, standards, security and privacy, egress, ingress, clearances, ability to escape. To advance other goals, ADA accessibility, energy conservation. The currently optional REACH code promotes green, sustainable, and energy-efficient construction. Building codes generally include rules regarding parking and traffic impact, fire code rules to ensure safe evacuation in the event of a fire, requirements for earthquake, hurricane, tornado, flood, and tsunami resistance, especially in disaster-prone areas or for very large buildings where a failure would be catastrophic. Drainage, green space, and fence building rules. Requirements for specific building uses, for example, storage of flammable substances or housing a large number of people. Energy provisions and consumption. Grandfathering provisions. Unless the building is being renovated, the building code usually does not apply to existing buildings. Building codes generally include continued specifications on components, allowable installation methodologies, minimum and maximum room and exit sizes and location, egress, ingress, qualification of individuals or corporations doing the work, licenses and specialty trades, BCD. For higher structures, anti-collision markers for the benefit of aircraft. Building codes are generally separate from zoning ordinances, but exterior restrictions, such as setbacks, may fall into either category.
Who does what? Legislature has given authority to the Building Codes Division, which is a division of the Department of Consumer and Business Services, to oversee the enforcement of building codes by various municipalities. The Building Codes Division also oversees the testing and licensing of inspectors of various trade specialties, as well as licensing tradesmen within various specialty trades. The Building Code Division also inspects elevators and boiler pressure vessels. In areas where there are no municipalities engaged in building department and construction activity, they will perform the functions of permit issuance and inspection. The Building Codes Division is separate from the Construction Contractor Board. There are two distinct government agencies. You, as a licensed contractor, are tested and regulated by the Oregon Construction Contractor Board. Your building inspector and building official is tested and regulated by the Building Codes Division. The BCD's primary function is to work with you, the contractor, not against you. They oversee the work that is done and make sure things are being handled safely and encourage a business environment that is constructive. They complete these goals through a number of methods. First, they enforce a statewide building code that has become a measuring stick you can use in your construction. Second, they interpret the rules and laws pertaining to each code and can set the record straight if confusion ever occurs. Third, they handle all investigations regarding licensing and illegal conduct involved therein. Fourth, they also license and certify professionals. Fifth, they oversee and make sure that counties and cities are following all of the appropriate laws. They check to see if these establishments are issuing their permits, reviewing plans, and providing instructions. Last, they are in charge of issuing any permits, orders, or other details that affect you, the contractor. Let's move on now to some of Oregon's statutes.
Oregon's statutes. Generally speaking, Oregon Revised Statute 455, which establishes how the state code is enforced, gives the first choice to code enforcement to cities. If they wish to enforce code, they do. If the city doesn't create a building department and enforce code, then the county will. The county will establish a building code department to issue permits and enforce building code for those cities within that county that do not elect to enforce code within their city limits. Finally, if both the city and the county pass on the enforcement of code, the Building Codes Division would take the responsibility to enforce building code. Most cities and counties in Oregon maintain their own building departments and enforce state code. A bill proposed in 1993 in the state legislature attempted to force all cities and local governments to enforce code. This bill, however, did not pass. Oregon's statutes continued. Elevator and boilers. There are certain trades that require further licensing with the BCD. These trades include boiler or pressure vessel licenses, classes 1 through 6, electrical specialists, ranging over a wide number of positions, elevator specialists, manufactured dwelling installers, and plumbing specialists, ranging over a wide number of positions. The Building Codes Division issues permits and conducts inspections on the construction, alteration, and repair of elevators and boiler pressure vessels. They also test and license the individual tradesmen within those disciplines, or specialty trades. The elevator and boiler codes are based on national models, and the division hosts citizen advisory boards during codes adoption amendment cycles. Private enterprise is also involved in code enforcement. Some jurisdictions employ contract inspectors to perform field inspections. Some engineering firms are responsible for plan reviews and can act as building departments under contract to the local jurisdiction. Some cities and counties have joined together to create a single building department by contract rather than by statute. One such example is the city of La Grande in Union County. Code adoption and revision in Oregon. BCD authorized by statute to adopt uniform building codes in Oregon. National Model Codes, amended and adopted as specialty codes. Anyone can submit a code amendment proposal during code adoption. Codes are generally adopted every 3 years. Can be amended in between adoptions as allowed by statutes. Who creates building codes? Legislators can enact laws or changes to the building code and to state law governing contractors and construction. These changes are usually in response to events or concerns that have recently occurred. The Building Code Division, as stated earlier, can adopt national and international codes. They can amend the codes for specific application to Oregon. Portions of one code can be left out entirely and replaced with the corresponding section of another code book. There are corrections made to the codes and to the Oregon amendments, Oregon-specific changes to the adopted code, called errata. They're issued after the fact and are helpful in clarifying and interpreting specific code language. Building code officials and other professional groups are not the only ones involved in code development. You, as a citizen and a builder, are able to become involved during the code adoption process. You can propose changes or amendments to codes as well. Any individual can submit a code amendment proposal during the code adoption process, which generally takes place every 3 years. During the period of time between code adoptions, the specialty codes, plumbing, electrical, elevators, etc., can be amended as allowed by specific statutes that apply to those specialty areas. Who creates building codes continued. If you take a look at the Oregon Building Codes Division's website, you'll find links to forms where you can submit code change requests. You can also become involved with your profession's organizations and propose changes or amendments that way too. Code is a dynamic thing, able to adapt to changes in industry and the environment. Hopefully, after this course is completed, you'll feel more confident about codes and the code adoption process to become involved and propose changes or modifications to code. You may even volunteer to sit on committees and help with the process. Who creates building codes continued. Generally speaking, a person who is looking for specific details must determine the key word or building component when using a code book as a source. Codes may be divided by occupancy of the structure. This is a key determinant for a plans examiner. When he or she look at a set of plans, they must think to themselves, what's this building for? Is it a meeting place for assembly or groups? Is it intended to facilitate education? Is it a storage facility? Is this a residential structure? Will hazardous materials be stored within this area? As you clearly understand by now, there are major differences in those occupancies and their prescriptive minimum design standards. Egress, fire suppression, construction materials, ADA, clearances and fixtures, are just a few of the items that have different requirements based upon different planned uses for the proposed building. Knowing the occupancy of the building you're working on is important when using a code book. Types of construction. Basically, the building code speaks of construction types in terms of fire resistance. Types 1 through 5 are separated by degrees of fire resistance. This is a key concept in building design and construction requirement. Smoke and fire protection vary from occupancy to occupancy and tend to increase in severity with regard to materials stored or the nature of the intended occupant. Obviously, a nursing home will have certain provisions that you'd not see required in a residential garage. Most residential contractors are familiar with the requirements of interconnected fire alarms that are wired such that one device will activate another device. Interior environment is divided into types of interior finishes allowed or established as minimums, the means of egress and ventilation standards, privacy afforded, and minimum areas for a room 5 foot by 7 foot, the typical bathroom dimension, happens to be the minimum area for a habitable area. Closets aren't considered habitable areas, but bathrooms apparently are. Types of construction continued. Other areas that are covered by code are the exterior of the building, certain types of construction, the slope and drainage of surface water, and even the placement of the building itself, established in general heights and areas portions of the code, which gives consideration to the height of a building and its relation to the property line. Obviously, these considerations are affected by occupancy and zoning restrictions. Generally speaking, the closer one building is to another, the more restrictive the building materials and fire-resistive construction technique. Virtually every component of the building is covered by code, from roof assemblies to gypsum board and plaster, from interior finishes to concrete, from foundations to energy efficiency. You can gain access to code by visiting the Building Code Division's website, www.state.or.us/BCD/. There you will be able to follow the links and review the various building codes. You don't necessarily have to purchase code books anymore, although we highly recommend having one handy. These are both resources that should be used by every builder or tradesperson.
Energy conservation. This is a particularly important topic in code today. In the past, you may have heard people speak in terms of R value and U value when discussing windows, where the higher the R, the more resistant the heat flow through a material. The U value is the exact opposite of the R. The higher the R value, the better the insulation. The lower the U value, the better the insulation. It used to be that residential buildings had higher standards to meet in terms of energy conservation and efficiency than did commercial buildings. Recent code changes have leveled that playing field. Newer commercial buildings will have a different set of energy codes by which to build. Effective July 1st, 2010, the Oregon Energy Efficiency Specialty Code divides all buildings constructed in Oregon into two groups, residential and non-residential. The residential group is made up of all Group R residential buildings of 3 stories or less in height. Non-residential includes all other buildings, including 4-story and higher buildings that may have been considered residential in the past. As we know, there are 2 separate building codes in Oregon that govern the construction of buildings, and these are not the specialty codes mentioned earlier. These 2 codes in effect in Oregon are Oregon Structural Specialty Code and the Oregon 1 and 2 Family Dwelling Code. Energy conservation requirements are contained in each code. Chapter 13 in the OEESC covers the Oregon Structural Specialty Code, and Appendix E goes over the Oregon 1 and 2 Family Structural.
Energy conservation. The 2010 Oregon Energy Efficiency Specialty Code for commercial buildings will achieve a 15% reduction in energy use in new commercial construction, according to the division. The new code will improve energy efficiency in buildings by making changes in 3 main areas: requiring increased insulation and energy-efficient windows, adding automatic lighting controls, requiring more efficient mechanical systems, such as more energy-efficient furnaces. Some portions of the code have been proposed to become part of the Model National Building Code that will be released in 2012. Energy conservation continued. The energy efficiency improvements were driven by Senate Bill 79, proposed by the Governor Ted Kulongoski and passed by the legislature last year. In addition to increasing the energy efficiency in commercial construction, the bill directs the Building Codes Division to develop a set of optional construction standards that go beyond the mandatory requirements code. Work to develop this optional portion, called the REACH Code, is ongoing. Developing strong energy efficiency standards for buildings is important because buildings consume about 40% of our energy supply, said former Governor Kulongoski in a press release during his term in office. The Building Codes Division is also working on statewide standards for electric vehicle charging stations, a SOAR installation code, and facilitating the installation of rainwater harvesting and gray water reuse systems. Oregon already is ranked 3rd in the nation for building code energy efficiency and 4th for overall energy efficiency policy and programs, according to the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, ACEEE. Oregon's new energy code is based on the 2009 Model National Code. Some of Oregon's 2010 amendments have been proposed for inclusion in the 2012 National Model Code.
Permits. Permits are required for most new construction, including alterations and additions to existing buildings. Repairs over a specific valuation in dollars may also require a permit and inspections. Individual municipalities or jurisdictions may add additional requirements and fees based on specific conditions within that area, such as geographic, seismic, and climatic. Permits are also a source of revenue for building departments. Permits are public information and, as such, are available to a variety of entities. Property tax departments are notified when a permit is pulled on any address. Businesses may obtain information from building permits to locate potential customers or buyers of their products. For these reasons, some owners or customers of yours may not want you to get a permit for the work they want you to do. This never is a good idea for a variety of reasons, including you may lose your license. The CCB can revoke or suspend your license and assess a civil penalty if you work without a permit. You may lose your ability to file a construction lien. If you don't get a permit and don't write a contract for anything over a specific dollar amount, all work should be documented with a simple contract at least. You can also lose your ability to file a lien for work that is illegal to begin with. You can run the risk of not getting paid and having to buy somebody else's materials. Suppliers can lien your bond even if the work wasn't permitted. You can get in trouble with the Building Code Division. The Building Code Division enforces the code requirement that the person doing the work must be the one to obtain the permits for the job. You become liable. If you work without a permit and the client is unsatisfied with your work, then you cannot make claim that the work was ever approved by an inspector. Part of the beauty of inspections is that when you pass an inspection, you are no longer liable for issues that may occur. However, without an inspection, all of the responsibility is now on your shoulders. Sets a less than professional appearance for you and your company. If you work with permits, it says you're serious about your business. Lawsuits. You may be called in at a later date if the customer sells that property and the new buyer has problems. You may get called in as a witness or as a co-defendant. The homeowner also loses out, especially when it comes time to sell their property. Real estate transactions can fall apart at the last minute due to the lender's objections. There is no safe benefit to working without a permit. Don't risk working without.
How to apply for a permit. A building permit always starts with an application. Typically, a building department will make an application packet available to the contractor. Within that application packet, information will be contained that will tell the contractor what he or she will need to do. Some permits are simple. Some are much more complex. Permits may require a pre-permit meeting with a city or county planner. Some may require more specific actions based upon local ordinances and considerations, such as if the proposed work is in a historic area or if it is within a local improvement district, or if there are local design standards in place, such as architectural features. Other considerations may also be in places that are not directly within the purview of either the city, county, or state. These might include covenants, codes, and restrictions. These are details that are attached to a property's deed and recorded at the county. As a contractor, you may not be able to find out about CC&Rs at the building department, but you can find out about them from either the customer owner or the county assessor's office. It's a good idea to find out if the work you're getting a permit for will be allowed by the homeowners association, if there is one involved. They may have restrictions that prevent what you're getting a permit on. You'll also want to know if there are any unpaid items on the property. The county should also have this information. How to apply for a permit continued. A permit application contains the information you must supply on the job, from how much the job is going to cost, where it will be, directions to that property, your business license number, not CCB number but a license to work in that municipality, and a lot more. A plan review may or may not be required by the jurisdiction. That might be based upon such factors as the size of the project or nature of the job. Some plan reviews may be fast and same-day events. Other jurisdictions may take a month to look at even the most simple of plans and the smallest of projects. Know ahead of time how long a wait you may be looking at. Don't get caught by surprise.